If you have any concerns about that, please let us know and we will oblige. Could you confirm that you have been sent a copy of the terms of reference and information about the standing orders that relate to examination of witnesses?
We certainly have.
Thank you so much. As part of the formalities, can you please take the oath or make an affirmation? We'll start with you, Mr. Mackney, and then come to you, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. Yes, I, Tim Mackney, do hereby affirm and declare that the evidence I shall give before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Elliott?
Have you got it there? I don't have it in front of me.
Yep. Would you like the oath or the affirmation?
The oath is fine, yep.
Yep. I, David Elliott, swear that the evidence I shall give
I, David Elliott, shall swear that the evidence I shall give
before this committee shall be the truth,
before this committee shall be the truth,
the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. Thank you both. We obviously have your submission, which we appreciate, but would you like to make a short opening statement before we begin questions?
I'll make a few remarks and then, of course, Tim will maybe make a few remarks. But to thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to Mrs. Lawrence and Murphy for allowing us to appear. This is obviously an inquiry that we've got a significant amount of interest in. By just to put in context, many members of the Institute are responsible for disaster management in their respective local government areas, and of course the Institute has a standing and long-term relationship with the Department of Transport as well. So we've worked very, very closely with all government departments in relation to the Reconstruction Authority. We had a great relationship with the former Commissioner as well, who we certainly made we provided feedback to over the course of his tenure there. I think I'll leave any further comments until in response to lines of question. But if I was to provide you with a high-end opening remark or observation, it would be that we're quite comfortable with the way the Reconstruction Authority is working. We certainly concede that it's early days with only 3 years in it. So this may be an inquiry that, or maybe representations would change if this inquiry was occurring in, say, 2 or 3 years' time. But to date, we've been quite comfortable with the work. There are a few standouts which we'll address over the course of questioning.
Thank you. Mr. Mackney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity for us to present. Yes, look, following on from Mr. Elliott, probably the only thing I'd like to point out is that certainly councils and local government, we're involved in disaster management at all sorts of levels, from preparedness and right the way through the actual response, and then following on from that through recovery as well. And while we are certainly representing the Institute for Public Works Engineers, there's a broader cross-section, if you like, and some of that comes out in our submission right across council, where we have other staff members and other interplay with council functions and responsibilities, including closer interfaces with our communities and the recovery through community groups and those sorts of things, which hopefully we'll also have a chance to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you both. I might just lead off with a question, and it's topical because we just had the Insurance Council appear with us. I'll open it up to both of you, but are you aware of any works that have been undertaken, whether that's a levy, a basin, retention basin or other such? Are you aware of any works that have been proactively undertaken in recent years, since the introduction of Reconstruction Authority in 2022, that has led to, I guess, a community becoming more safe and connected to that, their insurance premiums have been suppressed or reduced?
I'm not aware of any, but that would probably be a question for Tim.
So there's probably 2 parts to this. One would be looking at council-owned assets, and the other would be looking at assets owned by individuals within the community. And I think we've seen examples in both of those areas where resilience works, betterment works, in some situations, removal of assets from harm's way and relocation to other parts of the Shire have actually seen those types of improvements occur. And if I may, some examples. So my day job is as Director of Engineering at Tweed Council on the far north coast. We are well versed and have a history, unfortunately, in quite a number of disasters in recent years. We have undertaken a number of works since probably the first of our major floods in 2017, which has involved a number of resilience measures, as I said, closing down some facilities, relocating others, and also building in flood resilience works. In 2017, we had our flood insurance restricted. In 2022, we actually lost all of that flood insurance. And following work, significant amounts of work that have been done on a large cross-section of our insurable assets, we've actually recently, only in the last few months, received advice from our insurers that we have in fact had some of that flood insurance reinstated. So there is some more coverage there that we didn't have, say, 6 or 12 months ago.
Is that because... Sorry, Mr Mackney. I was just going to say, is that because you've undertaken some mitigation work, some sort of engineering solution to make it more insurable today than it had been in recent years?
Correct. We have removed some high-risk assets from the floodplain. So we had a tourist information centre, we've had a community preschool, and we've had a few other, mainly buildings that we've removed from the floodplain. We have a plan in place to remove our main works depot from the floodplain up to new flood-free land in a new industrial estate, and that is currently underway. And then we also have, resilience measures that have been undertaken on a number of sites where we have rebuilt rather than rebuilding as they were, with chip-rock and timber partitions and chipboard kitchens and things like that. We have looked to utilise much more resilient reconstruction methods and materials, and we've had the insurance companies come or their underwriters come and look at what we've done. Subsequent to that, we've also had further disasters such as Tropical Cyclone Alfred, which gave us a real-life test, and things such as our cattle yards in Wollumbar, for instance, were operational within days, whereas previously they'd been offline for some 6 months after the 2022 floods. So there's been some really concrete improvement, both to how the community can get their assets back up and running quickly, but also the insurance people have said the risk to them is obviously reduced and they are prepared to insure us again.
Thank you. They're excellent examples. I really appreciate that. I'm going to go to the Deputy Chair of this particular committee. It's Liza Butler, the member for South Coast. Ms Butler?
Thank you, Chair. Can you expand upon your submission and about how you have seen the authority's response to disasters evolve and how you have seen that improved? And are there any areas that you think that they should be addressing for continual improvement in the future?
Yes, the submission pretty much states the fact that we are, as I said, comfortable, in my opening remarks, we're comfortable with the progress. It is early days. There were horror stories when it came to grant applications and the time it's taken for grant applications to be realised. And I specifically refer to the fact that what takes 2 years in New South Wales had in the past taken 3 weeks in Queensland. Now, that is because we have had multiple agencies involved in the process, and we're very comfortable with the way that the Reconstruction Authority has made those problems go away. It's great to see a government department being able to come in over the top. I think, again, in our submission, but Tim will be able to specifically give you case studies, but there's been much more operational effectiveness and we've certainly seen a better level of organisation when it comes to responses. But Tim, do you have any specific case studies you want to refer to?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. There's a number of, steps to this again. With Tweed, we've had a long history here, working right back with the Office of Emergency Management, Resilience, New South Wales, the North Coast Reconstruction Corporation, as it was, for the 2022 floods, and then that subsequently, morphing into RA. We've seen a general improvement and a significant improvement in the responsiveness, and I'd suggest the proactiveness of the New South Wales government over that time period, regardless of which entity was involved or took the lead. And that, has culminated in what we see as probably, best practice now in the centralised model that we are fully supportive of with New South Wales RA. One of the benefits of sitting at the Tweed and being able to look just over the border is that we have seen the success of QRA. A lot of our consultants, a lot of our contractors, a lot of our experts who actually help us get back on our feet have dealt significantly with QRA because a lot of them are based in that southeast Queensland location. We see, I suppose, the model that's been put forward is very close to that. That is that we understand and have seen for some time in Queensland, and we're fully supportive of that. As Mr. Elliott said in his opening remarks, we do feel to some extent that this review may be a little bit early, in that we are still moving through, a teething period. The Reconstruction Authority only last month took over as the administering agency for transport for New South Wales and the Public Works Authority, which is a major interface for local government in terms of restoration works after an event. So I'm not quite sure that I've answered your question, but certainly there's been a general improvement. Specifically under RA, we see this centralisation occurring where we have one entity that we speak to about things such as the disaster adaptation plans, the DAPs, and that forward-looking strategic approach to prevention and preparedness. At the same time, we are hopeful that the work that's taking over from Transport and Public Works as the administering agencies will help us in that restoration and recovery period or phase. And certainly there's been some really good inroads in terms of the interfaces with our community networks and the way in which we've been able to interface with RA at that community level, both with spontaneous volunteers and also opening up recovery centres. Again, I've got to stress it's not perfect and there are issues, but we do feel that we're moving in the right direction.
Can I, Mr. Secretary...
Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Elliott, go ahead, and we'll come back to you, Ms. Butler.
Mrs. Butler's question may be the one that I'm waiting to answer, so I'll let you go first.
Ms. Butler.
I just want to ask about applying for betterment funding. Instead of building the same and it being washed away again, have you found an improvement in applying for betterment?
Tim can answer that.
No, we haven't. Specifically with the RA, no, we haven't. But I think that's, again, a function of timing rather than anything else. Certainly if I can call it rhetoric that we're seeing from all levels is positive. People are really understanding that betterment and resilience is needed. A lot of those examples I gave you earlier as to success stories for Tweed have actually come through our insurance payouts after those events. And what we actually found was that, ironically, those insurance payouts gave us more flexibility. We received the money and then we could do what we saw was best and best outcome for our communities. And that has resulted in us seeing that investment or that insurance reinstated. Unfortunately, with the government grants systems, while again the discussions at a higher level have been excellent and very positive, the realities of rolling out grant funding in a way that complements and supplements the existing DRFA arrangements has been very difficult. And to give you an example, we are only just now starting on betterment of about $30 million worth of road and culvert repairs from the 2022 floods, mainly due to, the difficulties of trying to marry up two different funding sources. That all predates the RA, and they have been very helpful in trying to assist with that process. Again, I can only say that the rhetoric, for want of a better term, has been very positive, and we're seeing that things, I believe, will start to head in the right direction. But I don't believe we've had the opportunity since RA has taken the reins to really see significant investment in betterment.
Thank you. And Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, and just to wrap that point up, if you speak to any engineer in New South Wales, particularly in regional New South Wales, the term "build back better" is normally something that's tattooed across their forehead. It's a message that I think RA could use a lot more, highlighting the fact that they're aware of the best way to mitigate loss after natural disaster is to make sure that we build back better. Now, I knew from my time in the emergency services portfolio, certainly after the 2019-20 bushfires, we were so quick to allow people to reconstruct what they'd been lost or build back what they'd been lost. There was many an occasion where planning laws and DAs were just set aside, and something that had been built 100 years ago within the realms of what was allowed 100 years ago, if indeed there were rules in that in the construction of a home or a factory or a shop when it was made, they were all set aside. Now that was a frenzy. I'm not stepping away from that decision or saying it was a bad decision, but it certainly is in stark contrast to what an engineer in a country town would want to occur in the event that they had been the victims of a nasty weather event or a natural disaster. So it's certainly a narrative that needs to be used and needs to be encouraged.
Could I also add to my comments, which were, I suppose, probably very much focused on council infrastructure, that again in the community we've seen some excellent inroads, particularly around voluntary house purchases and voluntary house upgrades, betterment to homes. So the house purchasing in a way is a betterment outcome for housing stock. It's removing people from harm's way, and certainly on the Northern Rivers, there've been over 500 homes repurchased and removed from harm's way in the flood zone. That's an excellent long-term outcome that is going to improve betterment, reduce those impacts, and keep people out of harm's way. So, I forget the exact numbers, but well over 1,000 homes have had that resilience piece, which means they will be, up and running much faster after future events. So, and that has been under RA's watch. So there've been some very, very good outcomes. My understanding is that in some of the more recent disasters, there has been less commitment to some of those wide-ranging programs. So, for instance, on the mid-north coast or on the mid-coast and Taree disasters, my understanding is that those very successful programs that ran on the north coast are not necessarily being run out in those areas, but unfortunately I don't have first-hand experience in that. If that were the case, we would see that as a potential backward step. We would certainly welcome that ongoing work that's been happening on the Northern Rivers, and would suggest that what we actually need to do is to get on the front foot for future events so that, as Mr Elliott said, we don't have people rebuilding in harm's way by the time state and local government get to the point that they can offer those buybacks. We need to have that almost ready to go on the shelf. We know the areas that we'd like to offer buybacks for, and when they damage next time, that comes out on day 2 so that people don't go and rebuild and sell their property to unsuspecting people who end up on the floodplain again.
Thank you, Mr Mackney. There's been some commentary in some of the other submissions towards that end. Now, in theory, we've only got 5 minutes left, but we were 5 minutes late starting, so I'm going to ask if you would be prepared to stick on for an extra 5 minutes, which will give us 10, which will give us the full 30 minutes we'd hope to spend with you. I'm going to throw across to Mr Roy Butler, the member for Barwon.
Thanks very much, Chair, and good afternoon, gents. Nice to see you again, David. Look, a question I have for you is just, we have a range of disasters that can occur, and I got to experience one of the very unique ones, which was a power outage in the far west, which came with zero warning. There was no warning for it. Other things like Cyclone Alfred, we had some warning. We knew something was happening, and it could have been a lot worse than it was, but it wasn't. So when the context of the question is, how can the authority improve the immediate or initial response to disasters that do occur without warning? What would they need to do better in that initial response phase?
If you're talking about without complete warning, as opposed to 24 hours or 48 hours, which is also part of the in the mix. There's very limited you can do. I mean, you can't prepare for a Newcastle earthquake. You can't prepare for a power outage. You can't prepare for a dam breaking. Well, not really. And as you well know, nothing can prepare you for a mouse plague. But I think without wanting to build RA up into some sort of crack SAS team of respondents, I think the notion, the military and the police, do desktop exercises, as you know, Roy, and I think that part of RA's prep for those types of incidents should be, regular and realistic desktop exercises, or toots, as you and I used to call them. And I think it's important that the community sees that, has faith that RA do have a broad mixture of responses to any number of incidences that may occur in New South Wales. I think the community needs to say that. And then, of course, when you do a PXR after a desktop exercise like that, and you can circulate it to the engineering fraternity, who are, I hasten to add, normally the first respondents to in communities when it does come to responding to a natural disaster or a major incident. Have them, have them critically evaluate the exercise or the SOPs that might be enforced upon RA, and of course make sure that those exercises are clinically pulled apart, and maximum amount of effort is put into it. But at the end of the day, you can't. What did the famous presidential saying? There are unknowns and there are known unknowns, and we don't know the unknown unknowns. So I think we need to make sure that we have a massive big left and right of arc, and we say these are the incidents that could occur. We can't exercise or prepare them for all of them, but these are the things that may or may occur. So let's have desktop exercises for every single one of those potential natural disasters every year, and let's circulate the post-exercise review or the post-exercise report, and make sure that, speaking from Institute of Public Works point of view, make sure that the engineers across the state are comfortable with any standard operating procedures or any plans.
As Mr Elliott said, it is difficult to respond in short timeframes when there's very little lead time. But, you know, I guess, and many of us in councils wear multiple hats, so many of us are limos and things like that in the response phase of event. And the crucial part to, I guess, that response phase can easily be applied elsewhere, which is within RA's remit. And I'd suggest that certainly building up those relationships in peacetime, ensuring really clear governance arrangements so that it's clear who is responsible for what, are really important items that should be done. One of the issues that as councils we raise is, and we've had some real success again on the Northern Rivers around community resilience networks, is that we are preparing the community so that they are resilient and they are ready themselves. But that is a very, very resource-hungry type of work that needs to happen in peacetime. And invariably what happens is after a disaster, we get 2 years' worth of funding, we put someone on temporarily, and then that funding disappears and all of the good work can very easily be undone. As you appreciate with community resilience networks, the community itself changes and people move on. And there's a real need to keep that fresh. So there's those sorts of things. But also I think to not lose sight of the fact that let's try and avoid the magnitude of what we are dealing with through that preparedness and through those resilience or prevention measures. And again, that is where we are really seeing the strength of RA will come to a fore. Things like the disaster adaptation plans are all designed to improve that those longer term outcomes. We may not avoid the actual event itself, but let's work on reducing the consequences. And that in itself will help any event, whether you've got that forewarning or not.
So, Roy, can I just add on to that, Roy? I mean, I've got to remind myself occasionally that it is the Reconstruction Authority, it's not the Response Authority. So, I still have PTSD over defence aid during the bushfires. But one thing that I will put on the record is the fact that from the community's point of view, the swifter you go to reconstruction, the better. The swifter you go away from recovery or response to reconstruction, the better, because the community gets over the PTSD, for want of a better word, quicker. Mm-hmm. They like to know that it's going to be business as usual as quickly as possible. And when engineers go in and start measuring stuff up, that makes them feel confident and comfortable and certainly I saw that particularly with some of the towns in the Lismore electorate that I visited with Janelle Saffin after the bushfires, and it worked, and you could see the change in their attitudes when they went from recovery or response to reconstruction. But Tim mentioned the word responsibility, and I think that's a key word we need to use in any discussion about reconstruction. We've got to make sure that we're very, very conscious about whose responsibility is what, because people lose confidence in government if they think that they're shirking their responsibilities.
Thank you. And for our final questions this afternoon, I'm going to go to Mr. Scott Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. And we'll probably bookend this chat a little bit by coming back to one of the Chair's earlier questions about the I guess, preparation work that has happened since the Lismore floods in particular, as far as what work's been done to reduce the impact of future events. Now, Mr. Mackney, you gave a few examples, but to me a lot of them were how to reduce the impact when there is a flood, as far as moving buildings, improving the quality of those buildings. Are you aware of any sort of bigger scale projects that might deliver some broader community protection, whether they be, and I'm thinking things like levee banks or dams or dredging the other end to either stop water getting in there or moving it away quicker at the end?
Yes, certainly. And I realise now that I think I'd said I had two parts to that answer, and I only addressed the first. So, yes, certainly. I mean, the voluntary house purchasing and raising is an example of where things are improving there across a community. There have been works also up and down the coast and I believe inland, on levees, and certainly within the Tweed area and Lismore areas there have been upgrades and I guess we'd call them betterment and resilience works undertaken on levees and pump stations and those types of things, which obviously protect parts of our community that are behind those levees. In the Tweed, we have an industrial land swap that has occurred, which is a little bit like New South Wales Grantham example, but it's for industrial properties and businesses where those who were on the floodplain were able to apply for land up out of the floodplain in a new industrial subdivision that council built. So there are some examples, and that was funded by state and federal funding to get that off the ground. And that's in fact where our new depot will be, but there are a number of local businesses that are moving into those areas as well. So yes, there are definitely examples. Would I like to see more? Most definitely. And again, I think this is where I go back to the DAPs and the fact that they are a strategic document that should allow for that funneling of funding and resourcing to the areas where we are going to get the best outcomes and the biggest bang for our buck.
Would you just, conscious of the time,
Please,
if
yes.
I just ask a question that you could perhaps take on notice rather than me put in a supplementary, whether you could document a couple of those examples of where that infrastructure has happened to reduce, I'm not talking about moving a house so when the water goes there it doesn't flood, but stopping the water from getting there in the first place.
Well, you'd start with Warragamba Dam and work your way back, but it is unfortunately the exception rather than the rule. But we can take it on notice and get our chief engineer to do some work on that.
In those recent times under RA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, right. Well, I think that'll be a very short response, Scotty.
Yeah. I mean, part of the work of RA is around preparedness and they're engineering solutions, right, ultimately?
Yeah.
All the levee banks
Yeah.
or the retention basins or, a lot of engineering solutions. Thank you for that. Thank you so much, both of you gentlemen. It's good to see you again and have you appear before the committee this afternoon. I think you just took that little last question there on notice. So rest assured we will send you the transcript with all the context there so you can understand the context of the question that you have taken on notice. We as a committee may also develop some supplementary questions which we would send to you. If we do that, we would ask that you respond within 14 days if that's possible, and if it's not, please talk to us about that. That concludes our public hearing for today. I would like to place on record my thanks to all of the witnesses, all of the people who have made submissions, in addition the committee members, the committee staff, Hansard, audio-visual services over there, and thank everyone for their assistance to conduct the hearings today. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Cheerio, we'll see you sometime soon.
You will indeed. See you, Clayton.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you later, folks.